My career may have changed, as some people call it a career. I believe it's a calling. So my calling never changed. The the way that I answer the call may have shifted, the assignment may have shifted, but the calling has remained the same.
Welcome to the Age of Lions podcast, a platform and community dedicated to bringing purpose, strategy, and calling to kingdom-minded people who are 50 plus and excited about their next chapter. Here's your host, Mark Clement.
What's up, Mark Price? How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Mark, how are you doing?
Man, I'm great. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I'm so excited that we're finally getting to connect and have this conversation.
Me too. Love what you're doing.
Man, I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to talk to a lot of different people who are similar age to us and kind of in the same stage of life. And I'm learning a ton about what different people are going through, what's good, what's bad, what's hard, what's easy, expectations and all the stuff. So it's been really, really fascinating. And the audience has been really good about giving us good feedback. So lots of good insights, lots of good questions.
Good.
So I wanted to talk to you, and I told you this before, but I'll just kind of say it for the audience's sake. You kind of check a lot of the boxes. You're the right age, of course, but you've done some interesting things. You're in an interesting season. You've got a daughter who's just left the house, and now you guys are empty nesters. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. And you just kind of had a change in your job, which is a big, anybody our age or older, when they do that, it's a big deal. It's a big step, especially if you've been in a career for a long time. And so I want to kind of learn from you about how you're processing that and what's exciting about it. But the first thing I ask everybody is, what was the moment for you when you kind of had the realization, I'm a little older than I like to think I am? What was that moment for you?
Well, I don't know what it has been involved for everybody else, but stairs were definitely involved for me. There's just something about stairs now. Like when you walk upstairs, you're more out of breath. But I really do remember, and I'm 52 now, about to be 53.
Okay.
But I remember the morning I woke up at 40 and my knee started popping. And like, I'm not making it up. It just literally started popping. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I said to my wife, I was like, hey, my knee's popping now, Gina. She goes, oh, I'm sure it's always done that. I was like, no, it never did it until today. But I think for me, the realization, physical realizations are obviously very real. You recognize the health aspect, but also there seems to be, for me anyway, now a theme in my life that is more of I'm good, if that makes sense. Like I don't feel like I have to drive all the time, to pursue all the things. Like things just kind of started slowing down. It's kind of like the matrix went still.
Yeah.
And so that's been interesting. It's been challenging, but it's also been very peaceful. So it's been neat.
I think that perspective is such an interesting thing. I've experienced that same thing where I don't worry about the same things I used to worry about.
Yeah.
I don't care about the same things I used to care about.
Yeah.
If work is a busy season, I know it'll balance out. If it's a slow season, I know it's going to get busy again. Like that perspective of age and experience is so valuable, whether it's in spiritual things or work life or marriage, or there is kind of a comfort level that comes from reps.
Yeah.
It's like I've seen this before. I'm familiar with this, even if it's something a little bit different. But it's like this is sort of like the other thing I went through 5 years ago. You have a bank of stuff to pull from.
Yeah, you begin to recognize things, and I think you begin to recognize deposits that were made in your life over the years that you didn't even know were being made at the time.
Oh, that's good.
Whether it's things that people have said, maybe it's prayers that you prayed, maybe it's things that you've said. It can be any number of things, but you start to recognize those things. You're like, oh, wow. So this is what that really means. And for me, it's kind of shifted for me. For instance, I think when we're all younger, we're chasing something.
Yeah.
We're chasing success. We're chasing financial freedom. We're chasing opportunity. And now all I want to do is pursue peace. I just want to find the things that just give me peace. I'm not worried about the next opportunity. I'm not worried about all of the things. I just want God's presence in my life, and I just want peace.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest, besides God's presence, which is a kind of a given, but aside from that, what do you think you're looking for that gives you peace? What have you identified as things that cause that feeling of peace in your life?
For me, I have to get myself still.
Mm.
And I don't just mean physically still. Like I have to silence the devices, and sometimes even get them to a place where they're out of reach. And I have to get my inner self still. I have to get my mind still. I have to eliminate distractions and eliminate the noise, so that I can know that I'm sitting in the presence of God without distraction, because that's where I find the most peace. And then obviously a lot of that peace too comes from my wife, comes from Gina, comes from us doing things together, comes from us traveling together, and just enjoying this new season that we're now currently in.
Yeah, I totally get that. A couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I did a personal retreat for the first time where I just went away by myself, went up to North Alabama, Mentone. I'm sure you know where that is, and kind of in the hills, mountains. Not North Carolina mountains, but
Yeah. We
Alabama
call them
mountains.
mountains in Alabama, don't we?
Yeah.
It's really just a big hill.
Yeah, but just a little cabin on some little ministry retreat. So I don't even know what that thing was called. A friend of mine had recommended it, but just 2 or 3 days, no phone, no even calling home. Like we just agree. Like I'm not going to call you at night unless I need something. Like we're just going to go radio silence.
I bet you were at Ponderosa Bible Camp.
It might have been. I don't know.
May have been there. It's a cool spot.
And then just a few weeks ago, I was in North Carolina on a trip with some other guys, but it was a hiking trip in the wilderness. We were off the grid for 4.5 days. Satellite phone was all we had just for emergencies. Like if something really went down, we didn't see another living soul for about 4 days. Like it was really, really cool. But I was telling my small group just yesterday, we were catching up some of the guys who I hadn't seen since then. And there was a lot of good parts to that trip. That was one of the best things, was just no device, no option for a device. I didn't really want it, but if I did, I couldn't have gotten it because it didn't work. I mean, we were totally out there. So yeah, that silence is so golden.
And everything in our society right now says, look at this, hear this. And so I think I think some people think that when we reach a certain age, those distractions become more minimal. But I also think that that isn't necessarily true for everyone, based on where you are, based on what the culture is doing, what culture is saying, what's happening in our world. Because as we get older, we should be getting maybe a little more wiser, and we want to maybe even speak into things and help people and lead people. In order to do that, we have to know what's going on. And so we're constantly in this like the middle, the in between the Scylla and Charybdis, and trying to figure out how to manage this tension of wanting to know what's going on so I can speak into it, but wanting to not know everything so that I can have peace.
Yeah. My wife and I both, a couple of years ago, several years ago, we kind of went off the news. Like we were like, if it's important enough or big enough or bad enough, we'll find out. Somebody will tell us. It'll be in our social feeds or whatever. And sometimes I'm a day behind. I'll own that. Sometimes she'll say, "Did you hear about so and so?" or vice versa. It's like, no, I didn't. I wasn't really on today. But it has never had a detrimental effect. Like I've never been like, I wish I'd have known. Most of the time it really doesn't matter. And I agree with you. You want to be relevant for sure. You have to be aware. And I'm not one to be ignorant about world events. Like I actually follow a lot of things, but I'm very selective about how and when I read about it. And usually it's reading, or I might listen to a couple of podcasts. But I try to not let it become my whole overwhelming thing in my life for sure.
Yeah, we just have to be strategic even more strategic with our time and with our energy and what we are allowing to speak into our lives and filter into our hearts.
Yeah, no doubt. And that was really the reason for us, was it was so negative so much of the time that you could feel it like pulling you down.
Yeah.
And we were like, we just have to release that and find a different way. And it definitely made a difference. Let me ask you this. Now that you're in your early 50s and you're in this new season, you're now an empty nester, and like it's very, I found most people, once they get around our age, that's when they can't help but think about, okay, I've got, not to be more, but I've got a limited number of days left. It's not tomorrow, hopefully, but it's,
Yeah.
you're in the back half. So, what are you doing strategically to make that valuable, healthy, fruitful, prolific, whatever word you want to use? What are some things you're doing, whether it's physical, spiritual, mental? Like what are some practices you're getting into now to invest in your future?
Well, one of the things is my health. Because when my parents were my age, they didn't have necessarily the abilities to go to the doctor and have the tests run and all the things so that you can kind of preempt some of the possibilities that are going to come your way as you get older, because they had 3 kids to take care of. And so that's one of the things for me is I'm on this journey right now of health and just making sure not only spiritually that my heart is right, but physically that my heart is right, because there's some heart issues in the family. There's blood pressure issues in the family, all of those things. And so for me, that's one of them. But I think that one of the things that I've done or I'm trying to do, and it's difficult sometimes, is choosing what matters the most, and making sure I'm saying no to the right things.
Mm.
And I've always said this: what everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. But the opposite is true too. Everything you say no to, you're saying yes to something else. So I want to make sure I'm filling the space of the no with the right yes at the same time. And that can be challenging if you don't eliminate those distractions.
Yeah. What are some of those best practices that you're saying yes to?
Time with my wife, joint activity. We right now, we said to each other, I think it was just last week, we were like, you know what, we need to do something outside of the house together. We need a hobby. And I was like, well, we could do pickleball. And then this morning, I hear that there's all these pickleball injuries and people that are over 50 now. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe pickleball's the wrong idea. I don't know. Like, seriously, Mark, it was like this whole thing on people getting detached retinas from playing pickleball over the age of 50. And I'm like, God, come on. But I guess it's true. Anybody out there, hey, I feel for you, because I do enjoy to play pickleball. But get out with our daughter when we can. She's at college now, so we'll get down and see her when we can, and we'll take little trips, just the two of us. Sundays have become somewhat of a date day for us, and so we'll travel together a lot of times on Sundays to different campuses with our church, and it's just filling the time with the things that are going to last forever. I mean, our marriage isn't going anywhere, so we need to focus on that. We knew a long time ago that Emily Ann, our daughter, was literally just a guest in our house that was passing through. One day she was going to be gone, but we would still be there. And so we invested in our marriage a long time ago. And I think we're starting to see even more of that fruit now. So we got ourselves kind of into a routine that makes it a little more simple. And now we're just having to kind of ramp that up even more so that me, her, both of us are filling that no time with the right yeses.
Yeah. So speaking of your daughter, what has that transition been like? Were you prepared for it? Were you trying to be prepared? Is there any way you can prepare? Like, just for somebody who hasn't gone through that, or maybe somebody's in the middle of it now, what have you learned about that? What helped you guys? Maybe some best practices or mistakes you made or whatever. I'd love to hear you talk about that.
I think one of the biggest wins that we've got from this, and I kind of alluded to it just a moment ago, is we very early in our marriage made sure, and very early into Emily Ann being our child too, we made sure that we were taking trips together. So Emily Ann was every year she knew that mom and dad were going to be gone for a period of time, It was never a long time. We were never super far away or anything like that. But we always made sure we were investing in our marriage. And I think that created some independency in Emily Ann at the same time. And it also helped us for this time when she's not in the house anymore. And the house has gotten quieter, but our prayers have definitely gotten louder, because we see some things that maybe we needed to teach her a little bit better. We just had a conversation with her this week, about the amount of money she's spending on food, because she's going out and going to Chick-fil-A, everything revolves around chicken for her. So it's Chick-fil-A, it's Slim Chickens, it's, whatever that might be down in Tuscaloosa. And, she spent a lot of money on food. And so I had to say, hey, listen, you get to pick maximum one day a week that you're not eating at your sorority house, because we're paying the dues, and that includes all of your food. So let's take advantage of that. And, so that's one thing where I think we could have done a little bit better just on the spending side of things.
Sure.
We could have modeled something different for her. But that, when she left, her only being an hour and 45 minutes away probably helps. If she was across the country or even 5 hours away, maybe in Mississippi or something, I think it would have been more difficult for us. But I think as we were preparing all of the years, not even intentionally all of the time, I think sometimes we put way too much pressure on ourselves to be intentional about preparing for when our children are out of the house. I think some of it is unintentional, and it just becomes habitual sometimes. But I think that what we also were preparing for, as we were preparing for them to leave, was we were preparing ourselves to let go, and just let her be the adult that we've raised her to be. And that probably, Mark, is the hardest thing, because she is 19 years old now. So she's old enough to make virtually every decision that she would want to make. We just have to trust that we did enough to help her make the right decisions.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean we stop parenting. It doesn't mean we stop advising and mentoring and guiding and leading. But the routine is definitely different now. And that I didn't realize was going to matter as much. Like the routine of her coming home from like fall, it's football, right? So she was on dance line every Friday night. We were at a football game watching our child dance at halftime. That's not there anymore. Like, what are we filling our Friday nights with? And, it doesn't need to just be binging your favorite TV show, or, for me, watching Gordon Ramsay cook on Masterclass. Like, it needs to be something that's investing in the two of us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's so funny. That routine is so interesting. We're in the Friday night vibe now. Our youngest is a freshman in high school. Yeah. So,
fun times.
Youngest son, he's in the band, and so we'll be there tonight. We're there every week, and it's awesome. But we have 8 kids between us, so this is the last one, and we're very aware of that, and so it's like kind of cherish the moments. These are the last times we'll do X, Y, and Z. But also, you're so right about the decision making. My wife's done such a phenomenal job with him, helping him learn, not telling him what to do, but helping him learn how to figure out what to do. Right. It's such a skill that most young people, they don't get. The parents, I think, they're too overly involved. They're helicoptering. They don't want to ever let them make a mistake. And it's like, sure. I don't know about you, but I don't learn well from successes, So
I have failed a lot.
Yeah, and because they're still with us, we can let them fail or make a mistake or whatever. But it's not life, career ending. It's not that detrimental. It's just like, okay, what was your takeaway from that?
Yeah. What'd you learn?
Yeah, because as you're discovering, your role. In fact, one of our guests in the episode 5 or 6 or 7, Sarah Hadgraff's her name. She's a therapist, and she was talking about how you go from the role of parent and kind of in everything to more of a consultant. You become a coach, a consultant to them,
Yeah,
They
you're
could they
more of an
call,
advisor.
yeah, yeah, when they need you,
Yeah.
which hopefully becomes less and less. So it is an interesting paradigm. Even now, when my kids are 37 down to 27, and they're all doing great in their careers, and they're happy and life is good. But even now, like, sometimes I think, should I call them more, or should I spend, like, we see each other
Yeah.
every 2 weeks. We have a coffee date where we all get together just to make sure we're spending
That's
time
cool.
outside of the special occasions. We do all that stuff too, and get together for all the birthdays and whatever. But just for some regularity, because life is crazy, we just try to have that steady um, meetup. But sometimes I almost feel guilty, but I'm like, no, I mean, that's sort of how it's supposed to be. Like, they don't need me to be in everything, and I don't need them to be in everything with
Right.
us. And, it's just the normal thing. But when you hear some parents talk about how much they're involved, which feels over the top to me,
Oh, sure.
but I will check myself, like, did I miss something?
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you've seen it. I know that we have, where parents do kind of relive some of their high school years or their younger years through their kids, and
Oh yeah.
um push their child to do everything that they didn't do, and all that. I believe that all that does is it creates a codependency that isn't really healthy. And
100%.
so my wife has just been so phenomenal. I mean, at just I'm the happy go lucky, right? I'm the creative. I'm the, hey, it's going to be all right. Everything's good, and the glass is always half full for me, and not that for Gina it's the opposite. But she's very pragmatic in her thinking, and she's very structured, and she's very organized, and so I'm very thankful that that's the case, because there's some things that I remember saying to Gina. We were getting Emily Ann's senior pictures made. We were down here in Birmingham, and Emily Ann had all of her honors cords, and all of these cords and medals, and I looked at Gina and I said, "Oh my goodness, thank God you are her mother." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "That would have never happened if it was just me. It's no way." And so, we I think it's been a good match. And it's really neat to see your kids take that step. You've
Yeah.
seen it. You've got older children,
Yeah.
so it's really neat to see them step out and really become that independent person, or start to become that independent person that you've raised them to be.
Yeah. And we definitely did that with both of our sets of kids. Um, in fact, we've had them live all over the country. We've got two in Montana right now, one in Dallas, one in Delaware. I've had one in Colorado. Like, they've been all over the place.
Man.
And but it is, you raise them to go live your life. Chase your dreams, do the things that you're supposed to do. I'll never forget, the funniest thing to me, seeing kind of the opposite side of that, was when my kids started being college age. And so every year when we would have a freshman, you go to the freshman orientation. You guys probably did that this summer. And we were Auburn people, so it was always Camp War Eagle. And part of that week, you meet with their advisor that they've already been assigned.
Right.
And they would say, you could tell it was a speech they all had rehearsed, because they all said it the same way, but they would tell the parents in the room. It was just parents. All the kids were somewhere else, probably having fun. And it was this lady, I'll never forget it. And she says, do not call me asking for their grades. I can't,
Right.
I legally cannot give them to you, and I don't want to, but I can't even if I wanted to.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they are the client. They're the student. They are enrolled here. You are not. You can't call and ask about money. They have to call. And you could just hear it. You could feel the air go out of the room. Like, these parents, like, oh, what am I going to do?
Right.
And I was over there going, okay.
Yeah.
But so many of them were like, and they get those calls where they're in college and they're trying to manage their homework. It's like, what are you doing?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, so Emily Ann's roommates, one is from Alabama, and then the other two are from the Northeast, like Massachusetts and Delaware.
Oh, wow.
I could not imagine what it would be like if my child was that far away. I mean, truly,
Yeah.
really put to a test all the things that we're talking about
Yeah.
right now. But, one of them, calls and has somebody come in and clean the dorm room, but it's a way that it makes them feel closer to them, I guess. But, when it comes to like the homework thing and all, I mean, it's you don't want to be, like you mentioned earlier, that helicopter parent. But there's sometimes that you just want to do a check-in. And you're right. You can't check in online at Bama.edu or
That's right.
Auburn.edu, and like you don't have a login.
That's right.
You don't have any of that stuff. And so when Emily Ann took her first college test and it did not go well, and she's always had issues with testing. Some just don't like always made straight A's,
Yeah.
and some B's, always made great grades. But when it came to tests, it was always difficult for her.
Yeah.
And so I asked her, I said, well, how many times? And one of the tests, she didn't even finish it. And I said, how many times did you go back and change your answers? Because she had studied literally, Mark, for hours, for days. It wasn't like cramming. She was
Right. Right. She was
working every
prepared.
day
Yeah.
towards it. Yeah. And she goes, a lot. And I said, okay, next test, do not change a single answer and let's see what we've got. Because we needed to find the baseline. And she changed one answer. And if she hadn't changed that one answer, she would have had an amazing grade. So, she's kind of learned that. So I've been able to check in that way with her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's real. Like she's got to take care of all the financial stuff. And unfortunately, sometimes she does, and she just buys too much chicken. It's real.
But other than that,
Other than that, yeah.
yeah. That's so funny. Man, that far away thing, I did that with my oldest two went to Auburn, so they were not far.
Yeah.
But my youngest decided to go to school in Colorado. And so, she's my baby. She's a girl, and she goes to school her freshman year in Colorado. Just
Wow.
like it was it's a 2-day drive if you're humping it, and it's an
Yeah.
all-day flight to get there. There's no easy way to get to Denver from Birmingham. I mean,
No.
it just takes time. And so, there were some hard moments, but some good moments. But she grew up a lot, and she did a year and then was like, you know what? I'd rather be back closer to home. I was like, okay, great. So
There you go.
but it's definitely a challenge for sure. So let's talk a little bit about work, especially guys. When we talk about work and we talk about identity a lot, and we talk about kind of trying to separate ourselves from that. And you recently made a pretty big change. In fact, I'd love for you to give I know you could talk for hours about this. We don't have that kind of time, but
Sure.
just give the folks just a brief overview of your history, because it's a fascinating journey. You've gone from what you used to do for a living to what you
Sure.
did recently, and then now you're doing something different even again. So like talk them through that real quick, but then I want you to lead up to this recent change and how you just process that, and how you worked through.
Yeah.
Great opportunity for you, but it's just different. It's a different world. So like what was that like? But yeah, give a little background. I'd love for them to hear just a little bit about who you are, because it's fascinating.
Yeah, sure. So, again, without going into too much detail, because we don't have that much time, I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, and became involved in the arts at a very young age. Went to performing arts school, graduated high school, and was a musical theater major at Florida State University. And that was going to be my path. Like my whole life's dream, my whole life's goal was I was going to be on Broadway. That was the thing. And so I began pursuing that. And at 19 years old, I left college. Some of that was my choice, but most of it was theirs. And I lost my scholarship, and because I made bad choices. And I began performing professionally, and started with a company called Opryland Productions in San Antonio, Texas. And so was there for a few years and kind of traveled around doing performing. And then in 1996, I got involved with cruise ships, and I was singing in production shows on cruise ships. That turned into me having my own show on cruise ships, which turned into me being a cruise director who had my own show on cruise ships, and did that for about 6 years off and on. And in 2004, I just realized I was tired. I was done. It was it was a different type of pursuit It was not, there was nothing healthy about it. There was nothing healthy about the way that you live when you're on board the ships for that amount of time. There's massive disconnection from things that really matter. There's really no opportunity for, unless you have it ingrained within you and you have daily discipline, there's really no opportunity to pursue your faith.
Mm.
And not that I was actively trying to do that, but I know that I actively needed to be doing that. And so I called up Opryland Productions again and went back to perform for them in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And in 2005, while I was there, I was desperate to find a church. I just felt like I needed to get in a church. I grew up in the church, was baptized at 8 years old in the Baptist church, and then rededicated my life at 14. And at 14 years old, the Lord said to me, I have bigger things for you. You're going to serve me in ministry. But then shortly after that, our family stopped going to church because there was some church hurt, which there's probably a lot of the listeners who have dealt with church hurt before. And so in '05, my friend Greg invited me eventually to come to his church, which was Ocean Drive Presbyterian Church. Now, Mark, I had been out of church. So that was '05. I've been out of church since really 1992, outside of when somebody would call me up and hire me to come and sing in church, which would happen, but that was the extent of it. And so I walk in my best suit, and it's Ocean Drive Presbyterian Church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and there's Tommy Bahama shirts and flip flops and shorts, and everybody's singing this hymn, "Open the Eyes of My Heart, Lord." And I'm like, I don't know this one. I literally pulled out the hymnal and I started thumbing through the pages trying to find it. And the old lady next to me, she goes, "Oh, sweetheart, just look at the words on the screen." I hadn't even noticed that there was a screen.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a screen and there's words and they're changing when they need to change. This is interesting. And so I just kept going. And eventually I started doing some Bible studies on my own. And one of them was called and accountable by Henry Blackaby, that really radically changed my life because it reminded me of that call at 14 years old.
Yeah.
And I realized that everything that I had been doing since I was 19 was not what I was supposed to be doing. Had I had some success? Sure. But I hadn't had the success that people thought I should have. I hadn't had the success that I wanted. And maybe it was because I wasn't supposed to be doing it. And so I just kept going to church, kept studying the Bible, kept doing these Bible studies. I met Gina, long distance relationship. She was in Alabama. I was in South Carolina, and we became good friends. And eventually I had the opportunity to join the worship team at Ocean Drive Presbyterian Church. And then I was the interim, or the second worship leader. So whenever the worship leader was out, I was the one that would step in and lead worship. And that day, I mean, Mark, we had this Presbyterian church singing Israel Hope. Like, we're singing "Rejoice in the Lord." All like,
Yeah.
I mean, we were doing some cutting edge stuff for a little Presbyterian church. And I remember that day that I led worship when the worship leader was out, and I had never been so nervous in my life. I'd been on plenty of stages with much larger audiences, but I'd never been more nervous, and I never felt more fulfilled when the service was over, because I knew that my purpose was being lived out. I can put words to that now. I couldn't then.
Sure.
And so anyway, I realized I needed to make a change at that point. And I had an encounter with the Holy Spirit, and it was very clear that I needed to leave my performing. And I actually had an album that was out called "The Show's Over." I had no idea that it would be the last.
Prophetic.
Yeah, it was very prophetic. Had no idea. And so I finally met with my producer, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, I'm pursuing ministry, and I'm giving you my 3-week resignation." And he said I couldn't go. He said, "You have a contract and you've signed it, and I'm not letting you out of it." And turns out, Mark, he never gave me a contract, and so I was able to go. And he never spoke to me since. which is fine. And Bobby, if you're out there somehow listening, it's all good. Like no hard feelings at all. And so I left in October of 2005 or September of 2005. Gina and I got married October 2005. And on October 26th, my birthday, the week after we got back from our honeymoon, we were voted in unanimously at an amazing little church in Hoax Bluff, Alabama, as their youth pastors. And that began my ministry career. And that's when I went, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
I'd never preached a message to students before in my life. I led interfaith services on cruise ships, but this is totally different. Like my whole resume was every show I had been in, like special skills, yeah, accents, I mean, none of that's going to help me in
Right.
ministry.
And nothing's more intimidating than a bunch of middle and high school students.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Nothing more intimidating.
Yeah.
And they'll let you know real quick what they think. And
that's right.
The whole first year, Mark, it was awful. I mean, I think we had like 12 to 15 students when we started with that youth group. We were the first people that really had been there full time. Not that the pay was full time, because if you've ever worked in ministry, you know that isn't always the case when you're in a smaller church wearing a lot of hats. And so I got to a point one day, I was at home. I felt like I was supposed to write a song, and I didn't have my guitar or anything. And I'm just thumbing through the Bible, trying to find something to inspire me. And nothing was. And I just got down on my knees and I said, Lord, I know what the problem is. The problem's me. Get me out of the way so that you can do what you want to do. Now, I thought that prayer was just about that moment, about writing that song. But everything changed in ministry too. And I became passionate about what I was doing, because it wasn't the position I thought I was supposed to be, the music guy, right? Because that was my whole background.
Yeah.
And here I am, the students guy, and I have no idea how to do this. And I just became passionate about the call, because it was the calling, not the position. Like I didn't go into ministry for the money. I didn't go into ministry for the job or for the position. I went into ministry because I don't have another choice.
Yeah.
This is what I'm supposed to do. And if I do anything else, I'm outside of the will of God. And I don't want to be there. It's a very dangerous place to be. I spent a large portion of my life there.
Yeah.
And so I remember several months later, one of our students, who I actually got to perform her wedding many years ago, and it was the first wedding I ever did. But she came up to me and she said she wanted to talk to me after service. And I said, okay. Now, at this point, Mark, our youth group had grown from those 12 to 15 to about 70 students on a weekly basis.
That's saying something in Hoax Bluff, Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, and these kids were going after it. Like we had created a vibe, but they wanted more. They were hungry. And she said, I've been really, really mad at you because something's not been right, but I can tell something's changed. And I realized in that moment that even though I may think I can put on a mask, I may think that others may not see that maybe I wasn't as passionate as I needed to be. And I was just kind of going through the motions, trying to figure it out. Honestly, just trying to figure it out for that whole first year. But I was not very grateful. And I wasn't very gracious either, to the parents, especially. So, I thanked her. And I said, well, something did change. And I told her about that moment. So I was there for 2.5 years. And the last night that we were there, we had 130 students there at the youth group. And then for the next 2.5 years, I was a worship pastor in Aniana, Alabama, and then went back to Gadsden and served as an associate pastor at a church there for about 6 years. And then we heard that, we knew it was time to go. I was in a prayer Tuesday morning prayer session, and I heard the Lord say it's time. And anyone who's listening, if you've ever heard those words and you know it was the voice of the Lord, maybe not an audible voice, but you knew it in your spirit that it was the Lord telling you, you know what that feels like. And, it was scary because I didn't have anything planned. I didn't have another, as we used to say in the performing world, I didn't have another gig lined up or anything, but the Lord said it was time. And so we stepped out of that ministry. And the first Sunday we went to Church of the Highlands, and my wife loved Church of the Highlands, and I fell in love with Church of the Highlands. We became greeters, and I began working for her at her law firm. And then eventually in 2016, we became part of the launch team for the Gadsden campus. And then in 2017, I came on staff here at Church of the Highlands and spent the first 4 years on staff in the production department, and then spent 4 years as the campus pastor in Gadsden. And now I'm back on our central team in our production department again. And so that's the change that I'm most recently am walking through, still transitioning. Really, I think there's still some things in me being worked out. But I kind of alluded to this a moment ago. One thing that I've realized through this transition, and I think this is key for anyone who is a person of faith who is going through a transition. It's one thing to do something different, but it's another thing to become someone different.
Mm.
I think that God uses transition to remind us who we are. I think he also reminds us what we're called to, because you can become in love with position. You can become in love with title, and it starts out very, very healthy. And then suddenly it's not. And I'm not saying that's necessarily what happened with me. I think there's elements of that for sure. But the Lord has really began revealing to me, and I have to remind myself of it almost on a daily basis, that I'm not here at this ministry for the check. I'm not here for the job. I'm not here for the position. I'm not here for a title. I'm here because I'm called.
Yeah.
And he called me to it. And if he calls me out of it, I'll obey him. I hope. I mean,
Right.
I've done it before. I think I've shown him that I will. But he hasn't told me to do that yet. So I'm not. My career may have changed, as some people call it, a career. I believe it's a calling. So my calling never changed. The way that I answer the call may have shifted, the assignment may have shifted, but the calling has remained the same. And that's where I have to center my focus a lot, because it's very easy when you are serving in a role that has a title pastor on the end of it, especially if it's like a campus pastor role or a speaking pastor, anything like that, because everything that you're doing every single day, it's easy to see it and recognize it as ministry. Well, now I'm serving with our production team, whom I love. This is my first spot on our staff in our production team. And everything that I do every single day, it's not always easy to see it as ministry. Sometimes it does just feel like work. But I think that within your calling, there is work to be done.
Yeah.
And so you just can't lose focus of it. And that's I'm kind of preaching to myself right now, honestly, because you and I have had very intimate conversations about all of this. You and I both have gone through transitions in the last couple of years, with roles and positions and all of the things. So I have to daily remind myself so that I don't fall into an identity crisis.
Yeah, I love what you said about him reminding you who you are. I think that's so powerful. And I think he also reminds us who he is,
100%.
at the same time. And I know for me, when I was trying to decide if I wanted to start another company or go work somewhere else or whatever I was going to do, that process, it was the language. I remember a lot of prayer around that was about being in your will, and I wanted to go where you want me to go and feel like I'm being called to the thing, whatever it is. But I also was not very open-handed at first about what those things could be.
Sure.
And I had my expectation and what I thought I should do, what I thought he should let me do or whatever. and through about a 6-month process, when I wasn't working at all and just kind of taking a break and trying to figure it out, there was finally a moment of just that clarity of kind of everything else had been taken away. All the other doors had been closed, even doors that should have, in the world's eye, should have been open or should have been easy opportunities or whatever. And I remember Jenna told me a long time ago, she's like, when things don't go the way um, the world would say they should go, just pay attention because God's probably doing something. Like he's
Oh yeah.
probably intervening in some way. And so when those other doors closed and eventually led me to the moment of going, okay, I really do think you want me to go back into business for myself and do some things.
Sure.
And then this last year has been one of the best years of my life. Like it's been so rewarding and so fun and so the way he's just shown up over and over again. And so that process can be so hard, but it's like we forget, like he's not going to cast you aside. He's not going to leave you. He's not going to.
He never has.
Yeah. I mean, why would we think he's going to? Because like you said, and like we said at the top of the conversation, after all these years, we should know better. He's never failed us.
We change. He doesn't.
That's 100% right. Yeah. So yeah, it is an interesting process to go through for sure. And as you've shared with me before, and I'm telling you too about myself, like it's just a lot of introspection, a lot of help me know what you want me to do, and
there was a quote that somebody told me years ago, and I'm sure you've heard it, and it's that your talent will take you places that your character cannot keep you. And I think there's sometimes that it's very easy to rely on your talent. Even if you don't recognize that you've got some type of talent like singing or anything like that, like you still have talents. The Lord has given you talents.
Yeah.
And if we rely too much on those, we don't work on the things that actually will keep us at the place of success by the world's standards or even by our standards. But something else that I've learned is that obedience will take you places that your talent never could. And so my talent may be able to take me places, but my obedience to the Lord will take me further than any talent ever possibly could. And so I'm like you. I just want to be open-handed and be obedient to whatever he's calling me to do.
Yeah. That's so good. You, through your career, especially as a pastor and a leader in the church, you've counseled people, led people, worked with people. As you think back over the last decade or so of doing that, when you think about some of the older people in your congregation or in your church or people you've worked with, what do you find some of the common issues are that they're going through in those 50s and 60s?
I think that I haven't really given that much thought, Mark, but the first thing that comes to my mind, and October 26th, I'll celebrate 20 years in ministry.
Okay.
We just celebrated 20 years of marriage, which I can't believe she's put up with me that long. But
it's amazing. Yeah.
I think that there is a danger, and maybe danger isn't the right word, but as you develop disciplines over your life of being in the Word, pursuing the Word, whatever that looks like for you. For instance, for some people, it could be, regularly attending church. So I'm regularly attending church and I'm hearing from the Lord. But we begin to hit, without even realizing it, an autopilot button. And, you speak a lot about wisdom, Mark. And the hope is that as we get older, we get wiser. But wisdom isn't always the loudest voice in the room. I mean, wisdom whispers. And so sometimes you have to change the pattern, change the pace, change the place where you seek the presence of God so that you can hear the wisdom from God. And I think that as we grow older, we are so ingrained in our patterns and our practices and the disciplines and the way we've always done it, that maybe we're a little more resistant to changing that than we should be. Like, I commend you for going and doing a personal retreat like that. A lot of people would say, man, I don't need to go do a personal retreat. Wait, maybe you should because you think you shouldn't. I don't know. But, you had to change the place. You had to change the pace. And when I look at the Bible, every time someone heard from the Lord, they were not in their normal place.
That's
Moses didn't always go to the top of the mount, right? But he did. And what happened? Well, we know he heard the voice of the Lord and was in the presence of God so much so that when he came down, the people said, oh my goodness, he's been in the presence of the Lord. Jesus, where was he? the Mount of Olives. He would separate himself to go pray. He wasn't always in the same place with his disciples. And so I think too often we don't see that. We think that, well, I've got to get back. I need to go to small group, which small groups are great. I need to go to small group because I'll hear from the Lord in my small group. And yeah, you very well may. You'll be surrounded with other believers and all that's great. But there is something to be said for changing the place and being willing to be flexible in that and not negotiate with God what you will and what you won't let go of to hear from him.
Yeah, man, that's really good. That's really insightful. And I've definitely seen that play out with a lot of the people we've been interviewing. You know, we've talked to a lot of really dynamic people, leaders.
Yeah.
They're fired up about their faith. They're fired up about their calling. They're fired up about what God's doing in their life. And they, you know, they're all 50 plus and they feel like they're growing and accelerating. They're not declining. They're not settling. They're actually moving. And every person we've talked to, it's they've been chosen for that reason, among others, but that was sort of a bottom line thing. Because I want the listeners and the watchers to realize the whole goal here is to challenge people to say, hey, God has more for you. You're not, just because you're 50 plus or 60 plus or 70, like you're not done.
No.
You know, we say a lot, calling has no expiration date. Purpose has no expiration date. Like that's, and so I think sometimes the place thing is interesting, not only from a spiritual standpoint, but also like be willing to do something different, because that it kind of opens up some opportunity. It makes you more dependent on God, makes you less dependent on yourself. You know, do something you're afraid of, do something that scares you, do something that you think, well, I feel like I'm supposed to do this. I don't really have the skills for it, but I'm just going to trust God. Like that's stepping out of the boat part, or the Abraham leaving his homeland. Like, you know, again, we could give a million examples. That's where God shows up. We say here at our house all the time, like we feel like God is attracted to risk. He's what's that scripture? I wish I could remember the reference where he says he's looking throughout the world who will step out, who will step up. I forget how it says it, but who will be obedient. Who will go. I mean, and at our age, we have a lot more to lose, which is sort of the challenge, I think, or at least we think we do. We also have so much more to gain and give. We have more resources, more time, more flexibility, more network, you know, whatever you want to say. Like, let's use this to do something amazing. And that change sometimes is where we really open up the opportunity for God to really speak in, and we kind of get out of our own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that 100%.
So good. Well, the last thing I wanted to ask you, is we're kind of running out of time here, is we've kind of danced around this and we've talked about it some, but as you've gotten older, how would you say your faith has changed or grown? How do you operate in your faith now that where you might not have been that way 5, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah. You know, what I have found in this most recent season that I'm in is more of so music has always been a part of my life. Worship music for ministry had always been a part of my life, just in different ways. You know, sometimes it was leading worship, writing worship. Sometimes it was, you know, leading from the front row in worship. And now it's totally different again. And so where I find myself now is craving those moments once again where I'm just, I like to say it as this, just worshiping the wall. Like I don't have to be in a room full of people to pursue and worship him. I don't have to be on a stage. I don't have to be in a position. I just want to be in his presence. And so I found myself singing new melodies sometimes again. And so it's kind of like, you know, if you look at your life, I think sometimes you can see the graph, right? You can see the ups and downs, and in particular with faith, you can see it as well. And I think what I'm realizing now, and I'm still in this discovery phase of this, but I think what I'm realizing now is the moments where I have felt the most as if I have, maybe even for lack of a better word, failed in my faith, are the moments that actually my faith was the strongest. It just wasn't the loudest. Does that make sense? Like it wasn't there wasn't a bullhorn to it. There wasn't a microphone attached to it. There wasn't an instrument attached to it. It was just the Lord working through me. Like I walk away now from doing a hospital visit, like some dear friends of ours, who they're part of our former campus here at Church of the Highlands, and we've known them for years. Our daughters have grown up together. We got a text, just, I think it was last week, that he was going to be, that he had a massive heart. He didn't have a heart attack, praise God, because if he had, it would have been really bad. He just happened to go in for a stress test and came out going to the hospital to have quadruple bypass surgery. And so I went to the hospital, visited with them, prayed with them, and I walked out of there going, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I had been in the presence of God. I wasn't in a house of worship. I didn't have any worship music on. I was just fulfilling the call of the moment. And I think being flexible and knowing that sometimes the places where your calling is used can change has helped me. And so I'm discovering that. So I'm trying to circle back now to the original question, which was, where do I see it changing the most or growing the most? And I think it's in the obedience, like I mentioned a moment ago. It's very easy to accidentally be disobedient in your faith. And so now if I hear, for instance, when I was younger in ministry, man, it was so easy to be obedient, with like it fired you up. And I remember one time the Lord told me, give him your guitar. And I walked up to the musician after the service and I said, hey, I hope you enjoyed playing that. And he was like, oh my gosh, it's the greatest guitar I ever played. I said, well, it's yours now. Here's the case. And he was blown away. And I felt like so amazing, not because I gave someone something, but because I had been obedient to what the Lord had told me. And I remember turning to Gina in that moment beforehand, and I said, I think the Lord's telling me to give him my guitar. And she goes, okay. And I said, should I? And she said, if the Lord's telling you to do it, yes.
Right. Yeah.
And so now it's hearing those moments again in a fresh way, with more excitement, with more vigor, with more awareness that it's even happening, because the position has changed, the place has changed, and all of the changes that have taken place have put me in different, even physical positions to do different things and be obedient to what the Lord's calling me to do. So I think that's where, for me right now, and like I said, I'm still in the discovery phase of this, and anyone who's listening can probably tell I'm still discovering right now. But I think it's so key for any of us, anyone listening, anyone over the age of 50, to realize it's never too late to discover. It's never too late to try something new. It's never too late to believe that God will do something new. And it's never too late to bet on yourself. And because the Lord does, like, he's always in our corner. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. The giftings and the callings of the Lord are irrevocable. And so the positions may change, but the callings stay the same. Just be obedient.
And we will end on that. That was great, man. That was so good. Man, it's been awesome talking to you. We could do this for hours. I know when we had lunch a few weeks ago, I felt like we could have stayed all day.
More sushi.
Yeah, we have so much in common and so much to talk about, but this has been great. I'd love to have you come back again as you're continuing to grow, and I knew you would be able to frame some things just the right way in that teaching kind of way where you could communicate it to people, and I know it's going to touch a lot of people. So really grateful for you, man. I love you. You're one of my favorites.
I love you too, Mark. Always have.
Good to see you, buddy.
You too, man.